Hello and welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Look up at the night sky. For all of human history, it's been a symbol of the infinite, the untouched. But that's changing, and fast. We are in the middle of a new space race, a cosmic gold rush. But this time, it's not just nations planting flags. It's private companies, launching thousands of satellites for everything from your internet connection to watching our planet. This is creating an unprecedented era of activity, but it also comes with a massive, looming problem. What happens when all this stuff dies? Today, we're talking about cosmic trash, and why taking it out is one of the biggest challenges for the future of humanity in space. For decades, space was the exclusive playground of superpowers. Now, over 80 countries have space programs, and private companies are launching satellites at a dizzying pace. In fact, the number of satellites launched in just 2020 and 2021 is comparable to the entire history of the space age before that. A huge part of this boom comes from what we call mega-constellations. Think thousands of satellites working together to blanket the globe in broadband internet. It's an amazing goal, connecting the unconnected, but it's making our orbit incredibly crowded. This isn't like a traffic jam on the highway. In space, a collision doesn't just cause a fender bender. It creates a cloud of shrapnel, thousands of pieces of debris, each whipping around the Earth at over 17,000 miles per hour. Each of those pieces can then hit other satellites, creating even more debris. This cascading effect has a name, the Kessler syndrome. It's a terrifying scenario where certain orbits become so filled with junk that they become completely unusable for generations. So why don't we just clean it up? Well, it's expensive. Bringing a satellite down costs money. A lot of money. First, there are the direct costs. A satellite has to save a significant amount of its precious fuel for one last burn, either to push itself into a fiery re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, or to move to a distant, less crowded graveyard orbit. Every drop of fuel used for this is fuel that couldn't be used to keep the satellite working and making money. Then there are the indirect costs. As orbit gets more crowded, insurance premiums for launching a new satellite are skyrocketing. Operators are constantly having to perform little maneuvers to dodge existing debris, which again, uses fuel and can disrupt service. And under international law, if your defunct satellite crashes into someone else's, your company or your country could be on the hook for billions in damages. You'd think there would be strict laws about this, right? Well, not exactly. The main legal framework, the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, was written during the Cold War. It's full of grand principles about space being for all humankind, but it's very light on specific enforceable rules about cleaning up after yourself. There are international guidelines, most notably that satellites in low Earth orbit should be deorbited within 25 years of their mission ending. But these are just guidelines, not binding law. It's up to individual countries to enforce them when they grant licenses to companies. Some countries, like France, are strict, others not so much. This creates a regulatory patchwork, a bit like a Wild West, where everyone has a slightly different set of rules. But where there's a problem, there's also an opportunity. A whole new industry is springing up, active debris removal, or ADR. These are the cosmic janitors, and they are developing some seriously cool tech. The Swiss startup ClearSpace is building a spacecraft with robotic arms to literally grab a piece of junk and drag it down to burn up. Others have tested giant nets and even harpoons to snag rogue satellites. The Japanese company Astroscale is pioneering a magnetic docking system. The idea is that future satellites could be built with a special magnetic plate, making them easy for a tow truck satellite to grab and dispose of. There are even ideas about using powerful ground-based lasers to gently nudge debris, changing its orbit until it falls out of the sky. This isn't just about cleaning up old messes. It's about creating a circular economy in space, where we can service, refuel, and upgrade satellites instead of just throwing them away. This whole situation is a perfect example of the tragedy of the commons. Earth's orbit is a resource we all share. Everyone has an incentive to use it, but the collective result is the degradation of that resource for everyone. This gets even more complicated when you throw geopolitics into the mix. When major powers like the US, China, Russia, and India test anti-satellite weapons by blowing up their own old satellites, they create thousands of pieces of dangerous, long-lasting debris. It's a show of military might that threatens every single satellite in orbit, including the International Space Station. This is why there are growing calls for a global ban on these kinds of tests. We need a global consensus on how to behave responsibly in space. So, what's the path forward? It requires a fundamental shift in thinking. Sustainability can't be an afterthought. It has to be baked into the design of every spacecraft. This means designing satellites that burn up more completely on re-entry, building them with modular, replaceable parts, and including clever systems like deployable sails that use atmospheric drag to bring them down without using fuel. The nearly $500 billion space economy is at risk from the very trash it's creating. The choices we make now will decide whether space becomes a junkyard of conflict or a frontier of peaceful cooperation and sustainable growth. This isn't just about taking out the trash. It's about securing our future in the final frontier. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.